Welcome back. Today is the next episode in the How to Perform Your Best in Any Running Distance series. For this episode, we've been fortunate enough to get Matt Crehan on the show to discuss how to run an ultra. Matt is an incredibly talented ultra athlete and has won Ultra Running Australia Association Male Ultra Runner of the Year last year, which was off an incredible 6 months at the start of the year as he was injured in the last 6 months. But during those first 6 months, he managed to run 8 ultras, winning 7 of them. And that included 2 100-mile races. The one he lost was UTA, where he came 4th, which I think is just phenomenal. This guy's, really underrated. I think we'll just, run through those results quickly. Brisbane Trail Ultra Miler, he got the course record there, won it. UTA, 4th place in the 100K. Margaret River, 80K, got the course record. Alpine Challenge, 100-miler, course record. Razorback, 64-kilometre race, course record. Mount Buller Skyrun, got the win. Mount Borbor, 50K, course record. And Cradle Mountain, 80K run, got the win there. So welcome to the show, Matt. And how's it been going, Matt?
Yeah, g'day. Thanks for having me. I'm a bit exhausted after hearing that list.
Wild.
Yeah. How's life and what have you been up to today?
Life's pretty good at the moment. I've actually taken a week off work and I'm up in Bright for a bit of a training camp. So yeah, it's been nice. I've been here since Monday. Today is actually a rest day. I'll probably go for a bit of a bike ride, but no running today because it's been a pretty heavy 5 days leading up till now.
Yeah, nice. I guess we've been lucky to get you on your rest day then.
Yeah.
Usually, we just have a chat about our training weeks and what's been happening in the past week, maybe what we're training towards. And are you happy to kind of just go into that?
Yeah, sounds good. Well, like I said, this is not my typical week, but I can go through what I've been doing this week if you'd like.
Yeah, definitely.
So I drove up here Monday morning and then had a 3-hour run, which turned into a 4-hour run with Joe Dorf, a local up here in Bright. So we were sort of running around Mount Buffalo, looking at the Buffalo Stampede course.
Heavy.
And then Tuesday, what did I do Tuesday? I did the 20K Buffalo Stampede course, but I accidentally did it the wrong way around. And I realized pretty quickly into the loop that I was going the wrong way. I thought, stuff it, I'll just keep going around this way. So that was supposed to be a bit of a course recce, but not so much because I was doing it backwards.
So are you doing the 45K there or?
I'm doing the what do they call it, the Grand Slam, but not the Ultra Grand Slam. So I'm doing the 10, 20, 40.
Huge. That's massive.
Yeah, it should be fun. I think it's 10 Friday evening, like a twilight run, and then the 20 on the Saturday, and then the 42 on Sunday.
Wow,
good weekend.
Yeah, that's pretty gnarly. So then, Wednesday, sorry.
Wednesday is supposed to be a rest day, and I went for a bike ride that ended up being a little bit longer than was planned because I was riding down to Harriettville. It was just so nice. So I sort of kept going all the way to Harriettville and then back. And then I had hill reps on the plan for Thursday. So I thought I'll go do them on Mount Bogong. So Wednesday night, I hiked up the top of Mount Bogong, camped up there, and then Thursday morning did my hill reps the top of Victoria, which was nice.
Wow.
And then hiked back down on Thursday Arvo. And then yesterday, I drove up to Mount Hotham and ran along the Razorback, like over to Mount Feathertop and back, which is just such a spectacular run. I guess pretty much like the best 10 to 11 Ks you can do definitely in Victoria, maybe even Australia, I don't know.
Yeah, wow. That's a big statement. But I think I saw a couple of Instagram photos though, like it just looks sick, like just along the line. Yeah, it's beautiful. So it connects Mount Hotham to Mount Feathertop, and the views are just incredible. That's awesome, mate. What about you, Smitty? What have you been up to?
I've had a pretty decent training week. Probably not as exciting or scenic as we know that I just run circles around the bay run. But I recently I've been fortunate enough to get a coach now. So working with Sally, which we had on the podcast a few episodes ago, which has been awesome. Just sort of not having to think about training as much, like just sort of focus on the training. Because I've said previously that I was struggling doing the sessions. I was just sort of easy running and finding it difficult to be motivated to stick to the sessions. So this week I did 4x2K at sort of a threshold effort, which I got through pretty well. The cooler weather definitely helped. It definitely makes the paces look better on Strava. But then I did on Friday, I did like a 5x1K with 200 float, which I got through pretty solid. I haven't actually done one of those sessions with a float, or I might have done it previously, Dom, like ages ago with you, but just even having the 200 meters is like a big difference. Like it allows you to recover, I felt, in that session, as opposed to just doing a straight 5K tempo. So that was good. I enjoyed that. And the rest of the week was just easy running. So yeah. What about you, Dom?
Awesome. This week, what did I do? I came back from Orange on Sunday after the running festival there. And then Monday, I remember, I think I just did an easy double. Tuesday, got down to Turbo. And what do we do at Turbo? Can't even remember. Hang on, I'll pull Strava up. should have been doing a bit of prep. Sorry, guys.
Been a bit weak.
I can't remember what we did Tuesday. It's all a bit of a blur with the rain and everything. It just feels like every day was the same day. But I just rested. That's right. I think because it was like flooding and stuff, I just ended up running easy. I think I was still pretty trashed from the weekend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty much easy running all week, except for Wednesday. I think I moved the Tuesday session to Wednesday, which was a bit different. So I did 7x1K reps down the middle of the road. It was like super windy. So there was like a headwind when you were going downhill and a tailwind when you were going uphill. So it's kind of like something shit to look forward to in every rep. It went all right though. I figured that the tailwind going uphill was better because I think running into a headwind just sucks no matter which way you're going. And then, the rest was all pretty much easy running. It was a pretty easy week, really. So not too exciting at all. But getting back onto this week's episode, we're going to be looking at how to run an ultra marathon. And that's why we've got Matt on the show. Matt, how'd you get into running?
Well, I haven't really been into running all that long, really. I've been running for about 6 years or so. I used to be into swimming, like I did surf lifesaving stuff in high school, and that was kind of like my fitness outlet. Like never competitively or anything, but that sort of kept me fit. And I'd be sort of on and off swimming in my 20s, in between partying and every now and then thinking I should get back into fitness. And I used to hike a bit, and that's kind of what led into running, like just liking being out in the bush and that sort of thing. And actually for a short time, because I've had the swimming background and started running, I sort of dabbled in triathlon, but don't hold that against me because I did get pretty bored on the bike after a while, and then discovered the trails, and that's where I've settled really.
Interesting. You did an Ironman, didn't you?
Yeah, I did one over in New Zealand.
What was the training like for that? If you could just like sort of summarize it, and like how does it compare to just normal running? Because it's pretty intense, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I'd say my running training is probably a bit more intense now, but I enjoy it a lot more because with Ironman, you just got to do so much on the bike, and you have to spend like just whole days on the bike. And I kind of just found that a bit boring. That's why I sort of moved on from it.
Yeah. There's a lot of just pedaling.
And I mean, I don't mind on the bike. Like I said, I rode down to Harriettville the other day and it was beautiful. Really enjoyed that, but I just don't want to do it all day.
Triathlon is like cycling just plays like such a big percentage of it. I think if it was a different sort of ratio, I would probably enjoy it a bit more. Definitely,
because you have to do, like, say you do a long run, like a 3-hour long run, the equivalent on the bike is much longer, for the same intensity, right? It'd be 6 hours plus, I think. Jeez. I don't even like doing recovery on the bike in the gym. 40 minutes is enough for me. I don't know. I just find running so much more enjoyable personally. What about you, just Dom? Do you get into the bike or?
Oh yeah, we got an exercise bike during COVID, and every now and then I jump on it. It's nice, like to be able to watch something, but I don't trust myself on the road. Like, yeah, every cyclist you talk to is gotten injured and like had a big fall or something. And
Yeah, well, it's not that you don't trust yourself; it's that you don't trust all the drivers out there.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, 100%, especially
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
especially on the bike. I guess the first sort of topic area we wanted to go into is just the overall training. So I guess if we can start with your typical training week. So when you're training for an event, what does that look like, and maybe how's it changed over time and stuff like that?
Well, it's definitely changed a fair bit since last year. I after that string of races, after Brisbane was in July, I got a coach for the first time.
Oh.
And then it became a lot more structured and a lot more focus on speed work. And that was partly because I'd done so much hill climbing in the past, and the next race I was looking towards was Surf Coast Century. So it wasn't, still hills, but definitely not as hilly as Brisbane or Alpine Challenge or anything. So the plan was to drop the elevation, like cut that way back and focus more on speed. But then unfortunately I think it was late August, I ended up getting a stress fracture in my pelvis. So yeah, I didn't make it to Surf Coast Century, and I'm still only sort of just building back up my mileage from there.
Jeez, that's right.
Jeez.
Yeah.
How did you find being injured? I think like running's like such a big part of so many people's lives, and like just having that taken away from you.
Oh yeah, it was the worst. They said 6 to 8 weeks off running completely to begin with.
Yeah.
And that ended up being 12 weeks before running a step. And then just the slow build from that, like, you know, within a half an hour walk, I'd have 2-3 minute jogs. It's just like, oh my God, like it seemed like so far to get back to where I was before.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm still not back there yet. Like I'm hopefully racing at Buffalo Stampede in April in a couple of weeks, a few weeks, but that's still not ultra distance. So
yeah.
Oh, wow. Dipping my toe in the water. It'll be my first race in 9 months.
Wow, that's crazy.
I remember we've talked about it before, even when I got like a calf injury, taking a few weeks off because you're just so used to running, and it's like a complete shock to the system, really. So, but I can't imagine, 12 weeks off, especially coming from the heights of those results. But I guess in terms of the training week, when you were going through your own sort of program, how did you structure it yourself? Like what would a normal training week in the build up look like in terms of sessions and stuff like that? What would you focus on?
I did a little bit of speed work in terms of session, but it definitely wasn't as structured as that I do now with the coach. But I tend to run about, 100 to 120 Ks a week, maybe one sort of faster session during the week. But my weekend runs were more just sort of adventure runs, catching up with mates, like either going to the Dandies or Lerderberg, or like going to the hills somewhere and just getting a lot of climbing in. But yeah, not so much thinking of it as got to get this hard training done. It was more like getting to spend the day out in the bush running around.
Okay.
A good way to think about it, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the difference with like ultra runners and like road runners, I think.
Yeah. But also because those 8 races that I did in the first 6 months, it was starting from February, basically I raced every second week. So if I was kind of recovering from one race, tapering into the next, like the races themselves were almost training, like rather than like I couldn't have too structured a plan because it just wasn't time between the races.
Like that period just seems like insane. Like
I know, it was a bit of a whirlwind. Like I know I had too many on the calendar to begin with, and then I just somehow managed to slot a few in between. Like originally I was doing Alpine Challenge 100 miler, and that was 4 weeks before UTA. And I was wondering if that was a bit too close to UTA. And then I got an email from Sam Maffett, who's the race director at Margaret River. And he offered me an entry and a bit of travel money to get over there. And I was like, well, I've never been to WA. And that was the 2 weeks in between Alpine Challenge and UTA.
Yeah.
So I thought, how can I turn that down? Like, it's such a good opportunity. So I thought I may as well pop over there. But I think I definitely paid for it at UTA. Like I was a bit cooked for like half of that race.
Yeah, like I'm sure you could have won that 100% if that was like your your goal kind of race.
Yeah, well, it turned out, because I was thinking about it, it's like, this is definitely going to impact my UTA race, but I was aiming for a top 10, and I thought if this means I come, I don't know, 8th or 9th instead of 5th or 6th, I think it's worth it, like for that, to have the trip over to WA. But it turned out to be a bit of a slower year, like with Ben and Vlad not having the races they were hoping for. So if I'd known that it would have meant the difference between a podium and 4th, which is obviously frustrating, maybe I wouldn't have gone over, but I still think it was the right move.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, it sounds like you're basing it more out of enjoyment, which is a good thing and something we don't always do. We get locked into maybe at just a certain time, but at the same time, when you look at the results, I mean, they're pretty crazy. So,
well, don't get me wrong. Like, I do take it seriously, and I do.
Yeah.
Like, when I stand on the start line, I am so have that competitive mindset. I just think, you got to enjoy the training. You got to enjoy the whole, because it's just so much work if you weren't enjoying getting out there every day.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess if we're talking about training, how do you recover from, just because this is so far outside of anything I've experienced, like especially because after I've done a marathon, it's like beats me up massively, and that doesn't compare to coming off the back of a 100K race. So how do you turn yourself around and then get ready for another like ridiculous event?
Well, I used to think recovery was my superpower until I had a stress fracture. But I think also with a lot of those mountain races, the recovery is easier than like a flat, fast marathon really bangs my legs up as well. And I think just a lot of climbing or just breaking up the sort of running you're doing. Like, you're going up, you're going down, there's flat, there's a lot of slower parts. If the race is longer, you're obviously moving a bit slower. Like, not that it doesn't have an impact on your body, but it's a different sort of impact, I feel.
It's a good point. I think, like, no one probably thinks of that too much, especially from the outside looking in.
And a lot of the races earlier in the year, like Bor, Mount Buller, Razorback was sort of mid-range 64, but the other ones were like shorter, basically marathon length, like 44 and 45.
Yeah. Do you have like a preferred favorite distance, or?
I got asked this morning, actually. I don't know. Either 100K or 100 mile, but actually, no, I'd say either 80K or 100 mile. I feel like 80K is a good amount of time that you can kind of relax into it, but still push pretty hard. Whereas 100 mile, like, as soon as you tick over going in through the night, that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, far out.
Like, it's like 1.5 times the distance to 100K, but it's a completely different race.
Yeah, right.
Insane.
When you transition from, because it was sort of triathlon and then straight into running, did you go on the roads at all, or was it straight into these kind of events?
I did one road marathon, but mostly trail stuff.
Okay. All right. Just looking at these, just looking at the races, are you able to, can you take us through what the difference between, is there a key difference between running like 100K versus 100 mile in terms of like the grueling nature at the end? Like, is it a massive difference to you?
It is, just because, like I say, going through the night and that mentality, if it's a hilly 100 miler, like, you're basically not running up any of the hills. You're just hiking all of them, like hiking with purpose. Yeah. But if you're running up hills early in a 100 miler, you're just going to be cooked by the end of it.
Yeah.
I've never done a flat 100 miler, but that also sounds terrible. I think you need the hills to break it up a bit.
Yeah.
True. Well, Dom's done a almost 100 miles on the track. 100, how many? 140.
Yeah, 46.
Oh yeah, I honestly have no idea how you did that.
I don't know. I was running it like an idiot. I think went out sub 3 hour marathon and then just kind of blew up. But yeah, it was an interesting experience.
Yeah. Well, I had a friend who.
Sorry, go on, Matt.
I had a friend who did it 24 hours, and he went out really conservatively because he was worried about blowing up and then just really slowing down. But he found he sort of locked himself too much into a shuffle that he just couldn't get out of it. So he was kind of disappointed later on that he went too slow at the start, and it just ruined his whole race by getting stuck in that shuffle mode.
Yeah, it's such an interesting race. Like, it's just you on the track, like no variables. Yeah,
No
Yeah,
mountains to look
interested
at.
to do it again. Yeah, exactly. Nothing exciting at all.
Or you at least well, I don't have personal experience on trails or anything, but at least, you know, you're running in sort of beautiful scenery or you know, something like that, as opposed to just running around a track. It's like a completely different mental experience, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But
Is it harder to break up as well if you're running around a track? Because I know, like, a long trail event, you can think about the next, I even get into the next checkpoint or the next big climb you've got or the next downhill. And I find that's, if I'm struggling with one particular section, having that to look forward to is a good way to get you through it. But if you know that the next 4 hours is going to be the same as the last 4 hours, like, how do you mentally do that?
I don't know. It was kind of like I kind of broke it up into 10 laps at a time. So I was just focused on that 10 laps and then, I don't know, reassess and go again from there. But it helped so much having all your family, your friends and crew there every lap. So you're not running like that fast that you can't have a conversation. So like I was talking to them so much and you can just feel their support the whole way, which I think, played a massive part. Like my headspace was just really good. Like I've never kind of gone to that place before. But yeah, it was tough. And my original goal was just get to 100 Ks. So I was kind of just trying to chase that. And once I got there, it was
hard to keep pushing once you already ticked that goal.
Yeah, it was a little bit, but it was more so because I went out in that first section just so hard. Then there was a middle section where I just felt absolutely terrible. And then by the time I got to like 100 Ks, I was like starting to come good again. And I could just like kind of grind it out to the finish. So
yeah, it's amazing how that happens in ultras. I find like you can feel so low and then a couple of hours later just top of the world.
It's just like exhilarating. Like I don't know, it's so weird. It's such a crazy experience to do. Like I feel like I've only done one ultra and it's been pretty life-changing, to be honest. So I guess like the next sort of aspect, we've got the training for an ultra, which you've kind of touched on. I guess another question would be, do you do much like technical training on difficult sort of terrain in training for an ultra?
Yeah, I do a fair bit. Again, not so much. Like it is good to train specifically for the race you're doing, but it's more just the running that I like doing is the same as the races that I like doing. So I do try and get on the trails as much as I can. Even I live in Melbourne and spend most of my time there. I go up to Central Victoria on the weekends, but in Melbourne, I live near Yarrabend Park and they have pretty good trails around there, like reasonably technical along the river. So I think that helps.
Yeah, definitely. I guess I don't have a ton of experience on technical stuff. So it's something that's probably one of my weaknesses. I guess like that's one aspect, the training of it. Then nutrition and hydration. That's probably like the next factor that is kind of different between a road race and an ultra. I feel like that's like a sport in itself, pretty much how you go about your nutrition. Do you have any specific sort of strategies that you implement?
Not really. I'm notoriously bad for not eating enough, like especially on a training run. I'll be running with mates and they'll be like, you haven't eaten anything for the last 2 hours. Like, oh yeah, shit. Like, I better have something. Yeah. And I will, it's not that I don't need it. Like I will pay for it later on if I don't eat enough. So in a race, I will try and make sure I do get some stuff in, but generally my stomach's been pretty good and I can handle this kind of sports nutrition like gels and bars or shot blocks, that sort of thing. In a miler, like I want something more than just sugar. Yeah. But generally, even like for 100K and below, I'll just stick to sports nutrition.
So just, carbs are good enough to kind of get you through 100K and below. Yeah. And then so what would you eat in a miler, like as a meal, and when would you kind of?
I wouldn't have so much like a meal, but just a bit more solid, like some like peanut butter and jam sandwiches I find really good, like on a really soft white bread, the sort of bread that I would never eat usually, but it's just beautiful in a 100 miler, even without the crust, just like so soft and digestible.
That was the plan. I took a sandwich with me when I ran the 12-hour, but it just got super dry and like I was trying to chew it. I was like, no, it wasn't great.
So you got to put a lot of jam on there to get some moisture.
Oh yeah, that's the tip. I don't know. Just newbie.
Well, I remember in my first 100 miler, I made up a whole bunch of food. Like I had different sandwiches and rolls and wraps, and figured like I'm not going to eat all of this, but I don't know what I want, so I want to have all these different options. And it ended up being, it was Alpine Challenge, but it was the year that it snowed a fair bit, so we did I think it was 35k loops. So I had an esky at the start finish line that I could go back to each time with all this food in it. And I pretty much just didn't eat any of it. Like every time I got back, I just didn't feel like any, like I'd have a bite, like, nah, it's not good. So it just needs to be simple. And I think sometimes having too many choices is a bit overwhelming. Like if you've only got one or two things to choose from, it's just easy. Just like you just grab it and you eat it. Whereas if you've got to try and figure out what you feel like, what will be the right thing for that moment, it's just, a bit hard.
Do you have a crew kind of helping you out at all, everyone on these races, or you kind of just find going solo and creating your own plan is good?
Depends on the race. Some I do, some I don't. That one in particular, I had my sisters helping me. Mum and my sisters came up, which was great.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, depends. Like if you're traveling for the race, it's sort of a bit hard to get other people to come just to crew you. Like it's a bit easier if it's a local race.
Yeah, definitely. Do you ever get like flavor fatigue from just having like sugary stuff all day?
Yeah, a bit. And I find sometimes what resets is just having something really salty, like some potato chips. And I won't have them with me, but just at an aid station, you've always got chips or something salty, and that kind of resets it in a way.
Yeah.
Or even just different flavors of gel or shot blocks. Like as long as you're not having the same one over and over and over again, that helps a bit.
What about
the ginger chews for the cliff shots? They're really good. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's
like ginger ale, I think it is.
It's a very like foreign sort of flavor.
Yeah.
I imagine that would work well. What about hydration? Do you pay much attention to that? And how does that kind of fit in with all the running?
Similar to nutrition. Like I don't dismiss it, but I don't spend a lot of time. I've been pretty lucky with it. I remember actually one year at Surf Coast Century, I was using Tailwind as my hydration. Like I had other calories as well, but the Tailwind, I tested it on shorter runs, or even like on my long runs, but not my long runs weren't 100 Ks. So it had been fine for a few hours, but then after 5 or 6 hours, I just couldn't stomach it. Like it was making me feel sick. So I stopped having it. And then because of that, I wasn't getting any electrolytes in, and I started cramping. And then it wasn't until a guy I was running with gave me a salt tab, and that seemed to fix the problem. But I certainly wasn't prepared for that to begin with. So that was a lesson.
Yeah.
And then also at the aid stations, their hydration was also Tailwind. So I couldn't really swap to that.
You couldn't escape from it.
No.
Have you
Not there's anything wrong with Tailwind, but like I do use it a bit. But
no. Oh, Tailwind, I love it. It's super good for most runs.
I don't know if you've tried Scratch Labs. It's a similar sort of product, but not as sweet as Tailwind. I find that works a bit better.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. I'll have to give that one a go. Have you had any really bad nutrition sort of mistakes? Or I know you talked about earlier, like with Tailwind. Have there been any other learning experiences along the way?
No, I've been sort of touch wood, no horror stories. Like I've had upset stomach every now and then, but nothing that was race ending or anything like that. Actually, Great Ocean Walk a couple of years ago, I still haven't nailed down what it was, but I wasn't feeling great at the start of the race, and then anything I ate just made me feel sick. And it was the only race that I contemplated. Actually, I take that back. A lot of long races, you always want to pull out at some stage. This one, I was seriously thinking I was going to pull out. I got to the halfway point, thinking I would pull out, and then my sister was there, and I was like, I'll keep going. And then on the way, the course got changed that year to an out and back. On the way back, me and a couple of other runners missed the turnoff, and we ended up going like 8K the wrong way. So I was already wanting to kill myself, and then found out I was 8K off course. It was like, oh my God, this is the worst day of my life. It turned out to be not that bad, but at the time. Yeah. And I think that might have been nutrition related.
There you go. I guess, the next sort of aspect, we've got what training, you kind of touched on that, talking about how you kind of just mostly focus on the big runs, and you've done a lot of the vert in the past, and now moving towards a bit more faster work. You gave some great advice with nutrition. The third sort of aspect, I guess, is gear and experience. What sort of gear are you running with at the moment in terms of shoes?
Well, I've been lucky enough to be supported by La Sportiva for the last couple of years. So I've been wearing their shoes, and that came about because I was wearing their shoes anyway.
Oh yeah.
And Aaron, their representative, saw me at Surf Coast Century. And it's funny, he said, "Oh, where'd you get those Las Patibas from?" And I said, "Oh, Bogong quit the shop in Melbourne." He's like, "Perfect, that's what I want to talk to you about." So that's how that came about. But yeah, they're great. Like, without sounding too much of an ad, you got to find the right shoe that fits you, but they really do fit my feet, and yeah, I've never had any issues with them.
Yeah, definitely. Seems like they're a pretty good brand. I think they specialize in just trail running pretty much and rock climbing and stuff. So
yeah, well, yeah, they're a mountain brand, so they do like mountaineering stuff as well. But yeah, trail running, rock climbing, based in Italy.
What about your pack? How does is that Las Pativa as well, or?
No, don't have. They have started making packs now. I haven't got one yet, but they do make one. I've gone through a few different packs. At the moment, I'm using a Ultimate Direction one, which seems to work the best. The issue I have with some packs is that the bottles bounce a bit.
Oh yeah.
And that Ultimate Direction has been the one that has worked best for me, I've found.
I think getting the right pack is pretty crucial, because it's kind of like a pretty different sort of type of running to just running without a pack.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get to the point where you're just always taking it on every long run, like it doesn't feel like an effort to be carrying a pack even when it's full of gear. It's just kind of what you're used to.
Yeah. So is that how you go about training? You just put a pack on whenever you can, or?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it on just to run around local park on a Wednesday or whatever, but if you're going out into the bush, it's sort of good to have that sort of stuff with you anyway, like definitely a snake bandage, and even if it's not cold, like having a jacket and that kind of stuff in case something does go wrong.
Yeah. Jackets, have you had many issues with jackets in the past, or what are you running with at the moment?
At the moment, I've got a Las Pativa jacket. I've had outdoor research in the past. I've never had an issue with the jacket other than I don't like running the jacket. Even if it's really cold and wet, I just get too hot running in a jacket.
Yeah.
I'd almost rather be wet than too hot.
Yeah. Is that the same with thermals? Have you ever had to wear those, or?
No, I never worn them. I've carried them, but never worn them in a race, I don't think.
Interesting.
Actually, no, the first Alpine Challenge, for the night section, I was worried that because the course got changed because it was snow. It was in November, but there's a whole lot of snow in the high country. So I was worried I was going to be freezing. So I put thermals on then and we got way too hot.
Yeah. What about poles? I think poles are kind of interesting because like I've got no idea how to use poles and when you'd use poles.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your experience with poles like?
Poles, it definitely depends on the race, but in the right race, they are a lifesaver. I really stand by them, but I wouldn't have them for every race.
Yeah.
Depends on elevation, depends on the distance.
Are all poles kind of the same, or have you found some poles are better?
The pair I've got at the moment, Ultimate Direction again, I like them because they've got quite a thick shaft and they feel a bit sturdier. They're still collapsible.
Yeah.
But yeah, they feel a bit sturdier than a lot of the really skinny ones. I think they're all very similar.
Yeah.
But
I guess it seems like a bit of a trade-off. You want it to be lightweight, but still sturdy.
Yeah.
So.
And they are so lightweight that I find, like a Brisbane Trail Ultra, for example, there's no really big climbs and big descents. So there's no real time to pack them away. So for that, I've done that race twice, and both times I just had them in my hands the entire race.
Yeah.
Interesting. I haven't even thought about poles in particular. But how do you distinguish? Yeah, it's never crossed my mind, but how do you distinguish between the races that you will choose to use? This is me being completely naive on this topic, but sort of how do you make the distinction?
I'd say the biggest factor would be the elevation, but also the kind of elevation that it is. Like if you've got a lot of long gradual climbs on fire roads, then poles are just priceless. Like they're really good then. I didn't use them for UTA because I feel like a lot of the climbing, not all of it, but a lot of it is stairs and you've got a handrail and stuff, and you don't necessarily need poles for that in those sections, so it'd be more of a hindrance. If it's really technical terrain as well, they can be a bit tricky. Like if you have like a fire road that you just bang, 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 you have to think about it. But if you're thinking about where to put your feet and where to put your poles, and that's just an extra thing you don't have to worry about. You don't want to have to worry about.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of like hilly, but you can still sort of find somewhere to put your pole down.
Yeah, hilly, but not too technical.
That's interesting.
And I think also distance would come into it. Like there'd be races that are like meters climbing per kilometer, just as hilly as say Brisbane, but I wouldn't use it if it's only a 50k or something like that. I don't think I would bother.
Yeah. And did you do much training with your poles in the lead up to some of those races?
Yeah, a bit. Not, I mean, just those big days out in the bush. Like I'd often have them with me anyway. Again, depending on where I was running. So it wasn't. I didn't do like specific pole training sessions as such.
Yeah,
just sort of get used to using them.
Yeah.
And I should say that I'm not really that proficient compared to some people. Like some people are just wizard sticks, just really good at it. But
Can't imagine you with poles running up, Dom. I just imagine you would be opposed to, like, I don't need those.
Having a pack is hard enough. Like, yeah, I don't know how I'm going to manage poles.
What's it like running with a pack? Is it?
Well, like I say before, if you're used to it, you don't really notice it too much. Although I do find as soon as the pack's on, I'm kind of in long run mode. So as opposed to even if you're just having a handheld bottle, I'll tend to be just like, your mindset is you're running faster. Whereas your pack's on, you're like, okay, this is a long run.
So it anchors that different mindset a little bit.
Yeah. As opposed to being actual physical like impediment, it's more just that mindset, I think.
And what about bottles or bladder?
Definitely bottles. No, wouldn't do a bladder. Also, if you want to refill them along the way, like bladders are such a pain. Like you don't have to take your pack off. You always want to, anything you're using regularly in your pack, you want to have accessible. Like I wouldn't want to take my pack off during a race.
Yeah, okay, that's pretty good advice.
Another newbie question from me: what goes in the pack? Is it just the bottles, or what? Like, what are the items that actually you take with you?
Yeah, so my setup would generally be 2 bottles up front. Like I'll have one with electrolytes, one just plain water, and then any sort of nutrition will be in little pockets again that you can reach. And then in the back would be the mandatory gear that you have to have and you want to have just in case, but you're not going to be accessing it more than likely, hopefully. Like your space blanket and your jacket and thermals, all that sort of stuff.
Mandatory gear. Oh, is that? So you actually have to have all that stuff.
Depending on the race, there's often a list of things you have to carry with you.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And some races like have more stuff than others. I think UTA, there's quite a few things.
Yeah, UTA is probably the biggest one I've come across.
Yeah. What's the just off the top of your head, what do you have to carry? Like, what are the main things for UTA even?
Well, there's a jacket. I don't think you need waterproof pants, but I think maybe it depends on the weather. They make the call. Same with the fleece. Like that's the only race I've come across where you have to carry your fleece. But again, that's weather pending, so they'll make the call a couple of days beforehand. But thermals, waterproofs, space blanket, snake bandage.
It's like a compass.
The maps. Crehan Mountain is another one that has quite an extensive list, but that's kind of fair enough because it's point to point and there's pretty much no access all the way through. Like it is quite remote. So I think you even have to have two thermal tops, not including whatever you're wearing. So like double sets of thermals and waterproof everything and enough calories to get you through the whole race.
Yeah. It's something I didn't think about. Like they've got to do their best to keep everyone safe. Interesting. There's so many different. That's one thing that's always intimidated me about doing. Obviously, the distance scares the hell out of me, but also like everything that's involved. But
it's funny that each race sort of has their own little particulars that, like, it's not just the same mandatory gear list that goes that's standard. There's always one little thing that you think, oh, that's weird. Like, why are they asking for that, or why don't they have that gear?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess so that's gear, which I think is super important. Especially, it can be a bit intimidating if you're new to the sport. I've found it to be pretty crazy just trying to figure out all the gear and tick off, make sure that I've got everything.
Have you ticked off? Have you gone through all your bases in terms of gear? Have you?
I've slowly been collecting items. I think
Have you tried running with it all yet?
No. Can't run with it all, but I don't have it all. But I don't know. Yeah, that'll be the next step. I still need like a space blanket and compression bandage, compass. I think those things that you probably need to go to like a a mountain equipment store or a camping or hiking store instead of just your local
Yeah,
sports store.
Space blanket and snake bandage you should be able to get pretty readily, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's gear, I guess. What about the final sort of component I kind of picture in ultra running is mindset. And I think that, yeah, it's like a sport of many different components. But yeah, so far we've gone through training, nutrition, gear, and now mindset. When you're kind of in the race, are there any sort of thoughts going through your head to keep you motivated throughout it?
Yeah, I think it's important to keep a positive mindset because you can go into a pretty dark place in ultras, especially if it's like 2 a.m, you're feeling horrible, you've got a long way to go, like it's dark, it's cold. It's easy to kind of spiral downwards. So it's good to be able to bring yourself back to a positive mindset. I don't have any particular mantras as such that I use, but I do try and remind myself that I want to be there, that I chose and usually paid a fair bit of money to be there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a big one. Try if you're with other runners that are in a negative mind spot, not that you want to mind space, not that you want to run away from your friends or anything, but like it's easy to get dragged into someone else's negative mood. So you got to be wary of that, I think. Like you say, because most races I've done, you do spend a lot of time running with other people and you meet great people and like it's, friendships are formed, but you can just sort of get stuck like in the same mindset as someone else. So you got to make sure you're not, going down a rabbit hole that you don't really want to go down.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's crazy like the friendships you can make just off like one run.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a guy who I've done like a couple of marathons with, and I haven't really talked to him at all, other than in the race. And I feel like I'm best mates with him, even though I hardly know the guy. But it's pretty special like that. Yeah, so I guess that's motivation. Have you had many really sort of dark moments? I know you mentioned before there was only one moment where you were thinking about pulling out of the race. Has there been any other times where you've managed to pull yourself out of going to those really dark points?
My first 100-mile was pretty tough. There was a point, I think it was about sort of 120k in or so. So you've been on your feet for a long time and it just seems so far to go. Like 40k is still a long way. So it just sort of seems like, how am I going to get there? And you know that if you just keep moving forward, you'll get there. But you look at your watch and then you look at your watch an hour later, it's actually only like 6 minutes later and you're like, oh my God, like I just have barely moved. And the first time I did Brisbane Trail Ultra, it rained basically the whole time. So I got in a pretty low moment during the night of that race as well.
Yeah, far out. That's crazy.
Yeah, during the night you add the layer of being in the night as well. And it's like,
it wasn't cold luckily, but it was just wet and muddy and long. It was a long way.
How do you go with like sleep deprivation? Have you seen like any, I don't know, illusions or?
No, well, I've only ever done like 100 miles is the furthest I've gone. So it's only ever been one night, and even that, it's usually not even a whole night. It's sort of into the night that you finish. No, I mean, other than going to a few dark places, I haven't really had any hallucinations or anything like that. I find caffeine definitely helps.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, or chocolate-coated coffee beans. That's another good one for nutrition.
Oh yeah, interesting.
How does it work when you can be like, even sometimes I find on the long run, you can feel not great and then you just lift out of it. But I imagine there's another element entirely on such a long race. How long does it typically, because I haven't personally been in those experiences, how long does it typically last, like those down moments before you lift up? And is there anything in particular that brings you up, or is it just because you've managed to get to another stage, or is there anything you can think of in that regard?
Well, firstly, I wouldn't say it's typical. I think it varies so much from day to day. Like, I think a lot of the time it is nutrition related. Even if you don't think it is, it probably is your sugar levels getting a bit low, or your energy levels. That's like why caffeine can help. And even if you don't think that having a gel will do anything, you'll have one and then 20 minutes, 10 minutes later, you'll feel better, and you might not even put the two and two together, but that's probably why you're feeling a bit better.
Mm.
And I think also when it's a really long race, and especially a mountainous sort of one, you can, if you're having those low patches, you can just walk for a while and get yourself through it. Like in a long run, you're sort of struggling.
Yeah.
Or like, marathon distance, whatever, you're going through a low patch, but it kind of hurts because you have to keep pushing. Whereas in a race like that, you do actually have time to just walk for a while and reset, and then eventually things will get better, hopefully.
All right. I think thanks for that. That's mindset, the final component of. Is there anything else we've missed there? I'm sure there's plenty, but roughly we've touched on training, nutrition, gear, and mindset. Anything else you want to mention for how to run an ultra?
No, I don't think so. I think my advice would be, if this is sort of going out to people looking to get into ultra running, and if you feel a bit daunted just by the sheer sort of distance of it, they're not as hard as people think. Like, I honestly think like a fast flat marathon is harder than, so I don't know, like a 50K or something like that. So if you just slowly work, I wouldn't say jump into a 100 miler if you're not experienced on the trails, but if you're just slowly working your way up to it, ultras, they're just a lot of fun. You can have a lot of fun out there. You can meet a lot of good people. You run in some beautiful places.
Definitely. It's pretty.
Yeah, that's good advice, actually, because I think most people find it, me included, extremely daunting going to that distance. But yeah.
I think, as long as you've got that in your head that you're not going to be running as hard as you would if it was shorter distance.
Yeah.
You have to change that mindset before you can even think about it.
Wrapping up, we've been asking every guest on the show what their favorite race was and why. Is there any race that you would say was your favorite race, and why?
Oh, geez, there's a lot. Probably Cradle Mountain, which I've done a few years in a row. It's just such a varied terrain. Like, usually, it's an overland track. It's pretty like famous hiking track, and people do that over 5 or 6 days. And the beauty of it is that you have basically different environment that you're walking through each day. So when you do it as an ultra in one day, it's just like the whole landscape changes. You go from like alpine areas around Cradle Mountain to like temperate rainforests and eucalyptus bush. Like, it's just, stunning. I'd say that one.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds pretty cool. Like, just being able to run through all those different environments, like it, as a runner, that would be great kind of motivation to get to the next kind of checkpoint. Yeah.
It's quite technical in parts. Like, it's 80K, but it feels like longer than 80K because you've been concentrating on where your feet go. So, it's a bit of a mix, because you get this really technical terrain, then you have a boardwalk for a while, and then really technical terrain again. So you're sort of, if you're going to try and do a good time, you've got to, you just can't move too fast when it's so technical. But then when you hit the boardwalk, you have to just put the hammer down and just run.
So it's like a little session for
it is a bit interval session.
Crazy.
Or just quickly on that point, because I contrast that to running on a treadmill. Do you find because you have to concentrate, it makes time go a little quicker as well, because you have to specifically concentrate on your footing, and then there's so many different variables? That's one thing I've thought about in regards to ultras.
It can make it go quicker, but it can also really tire you out. Like, you can just be exhausted from, like, even if you don't realize how much you're concentrating, it does really like add a toll, I think.
Because you got that mental focus component, so might actually
it's to the point where you almost get like frustrated, like if it's going on for too long. Like we did one pretty technical run on the Great North Walk, and like I was just getting annoyed at it. Like, can't open up my legs and actually run. It's just all this bullshit technical stuff. But,
it's funny when you hit a patch in a race, like even like UTA is the same. When you hit a bit of fire road, and you're just like, you just feel like you just switch off and your legs are just like turning over. And even though you're running a lot harder and faster in that point, that seems the easier part. You just have a breath.
And the other thing is, it's like, because I feel like as a runner, you're always focusing on your pace quite a bit. But on the technical stuff, you're just going so slow. So it feels like you're getting nowhere as well, which can kind of add to the frustration, I guess.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Alpine Challenge is a bit like that as well. There's a few little sections where you'll need both hands trying to get down rocks and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
But,
Have you had much like rock climbing experience?
I wouldn't say rock climbing, but it's kind of like you're just scrambling and trying to figure out what to do with your poles while you're trying to get down those rocks. Actually, without like backtracking, my favorite race, I think Cradle Mountain as a race, but I think last year's Alpine Challenge, I would say, was my favorite race experience.
Yeah, right. Why was that?
Mostly because I ran most of the day. I was in a weird frame of mind from the get-go. Like I'd had quite a few good races leading into it, and then I just, for some reason, wasn't feeling competitive on the day. I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy today. And a friend of mine, Matt Dunn, it was his first 100 miler, so the plan was to run with him for the first, I don't know, 80 to 100 Ks and then see what happened. And then after like, I don't know, 20 or 30 Ks, I was like, oh, I'm just going to run with you all day. Like, this is great. We're having like good chats, just having a great day out in the trails.
Yeah.
And then he did really well. His first 100 miler and he came second. And we sort of parted ways around 120-ish Ks. But yeah, that was just everything from start to finish in that race. Just it didn't seem to go through any really low patches other than maybe coming down into Harriettville when it was getting dark and Matt was getting, this was from it before, Matt was going sort of spiraling into a dark place, and I thought, I'm going to distance myself from this.
Well, what happens when, what are the signs? Like, just look like they're fading physically, or what?
He was just sort of cracking the chutes on. It was quite a technical descent, and it's in the dark and often tripping over, and it's like, fuck this, just want to get to the next checkpoint. I'm so sick of this, just want to run.
That would be me from 3Ks probably.
Yeah, I think Turbo was down there as well that day. I think he just did the 60 or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and it was a great weekend all around. Like because we finished at I don't know, whatever time in the morning, and didn't really get to sleep, so sort of cracked open a beer and started having a few beers, and then Turbo woke up because he'd done the 60K the night before, and he came up to our apartment, was staying in Falls Creek, so he came up and had a few beers with us and then wandered down to the presentations. It was good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think he got in a bit of trouble for having beers early in the morning when he was supposed to drive home, but
yeah.
Oh, that's good. So what do you got planned for future running? What's going on in the future?
We've got Buffalo Stampede in a couple of weeks. Potentially coming up here again next week, actually, for the Razorback Run, which I've done the last few years, but just doing a shorter distance. Hopefully catching up with a mate of mine, Nick Bamford, going back to what I was saying about meeting friends in races. I met him up at Brisbane Trail Ultra and ran the first, I don't know, 80 to 100 Ks with him. So we formed a bit of a bond. It'd be good to catch up with him again. Then Buffalo Stampede, I'm doing the 50 at UTA and then heading over to Italy for Lavaredo, which would be cool.
Oh, crazy.
I haven't done any European races before, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, geez, I'm sure you'll tear it up over there.
There'll be some stiff competition, I think. So
yeah, I can imagine.
I've done some hiking around those mountains, like the Dolomites in northern Italy, and they're spectacular. So yeah, really looking forward to that.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming onto the show and giving everyone a few pointers on how to be an ultra runner.
No worries.
Yeah, I'm sure it's invaluable experience for anyone who listens.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Matt.
No worries. Thanks for having me.